Okay, 22 minutes later, we're back. So it seems like this thing is basically finished installing everything, and it's pretty much all gone successfully. There were a few errors, some unknown headers here, which have happened on, those errors have appeared on every system I've tried this on, including real systems that aren't VMs. And then there are some errors in installing Pappy, which is to be expected. Actually, I developed this script to set up servers that you want to do multi-core experiments on, not necessarily virtual machines. And Pappy's complaining here basically that all sorts of performance counter measurements that it would like to access, things that require direct access to the CPU to actually activate the performance monitoring counters, it can't get access to. And this is not something you can do within a VM. That might be a job for a container, like a Docker container or something, if you wanted to actually do like performance testing within a VM. Performance testing, in my mind, is something you probably want to do not on a VM. It's something you want to do on a real system that you can connect to remotely via the techniques that I showed you with NetBeans. So here's sort of an idea of what the gigantic run script did, just to quickly scroll through it. So it did all that. And we've installed all sorts of things. So we have, for example, G++, nice new version, 7.4. We have make, we have htop, which is just a fancier looking top utility to let you see what's going on in the system. And you can navigate and kill things interactively by using hotkeys. For example, we have in our putty window, we have a top instance running here. And it's updating every few seconds. And I can actually, if I find it here, I can kill it by pressing F9 and then sending a sig term or a sig kill and pressing enter. And if I look back here, it got killed. So it's kind of a nice little sort of task manager interface. You press Q to exit. So we have htop. We have micro is quite a neat text editor. So it's a very nice little text editor. Control Q to quit. I'll use micro to look at the install.sh. So it's got mouse support. You can scroll with the mouse wheel. It's got click and drag and copy paste with Control C and Control V, cut lines with Control X, Control F to search. So I can search for render and then press escape to cancel my search, or I can search for dev/null and I can keep hitting Control F. And so you press enter, and then it's like Control N for next and previous. And we'll get rid of these line numbers on the left because they actually screw up our ability to copy text in some situations between the guest system and the host system. But otherwise, it's quite a nice text editor. It's very nicely featured. You can select things and press tab and shift tab to indent. And all of these features all work when you're accessing from the remote host, which is quite nice. So if I go micro install script / part1 / install.sh, I can actually do all this stuff. So I can, select things and tab and scroll up and down with mouse wheel all remotely. The colors look a little different because of the terminal settings, but this is a really nice editor for doing work remotely and still having access to sort of features that you would expect. So that's a quick intro to micro. We've also got all sorts of other interesting utilities that are installed, but I'll sort of leave describing a lot of those to another video. One of the bigger things that you might care about in terms of sort of beautifying your experience is that there's a second script to install some sort of user-specific stuff. And one of the things it sets up is powerline, which is a really popular in the world of Mac development. It's a really nice plugin for Bash and all sorts of other things that will help you sort of have this nice color separation between commands that you're entering and output. Your prompts look really, really nice, as you've sort of maybe seen in some of the other videos I posted. Before I show the result of that, one of the other things installed in this attended installation script is this bashhub.com, which is a really nice way of kind of searching and recalling commands that you've already entered. I'm not a new user. You can sign up for a free account yourself. I'll just enter my details here, and it asks what I want to call this machine. I'll call it tutorial VirtualBox. That's fine. Now, the rest of this stuff all seems more or less fine. There was a little error here. I think there's a small bug in the install script that now that I've done this fresh install, I can sort of see that bug, and I can try to fix it so there's no powerline folder. So I'll have to fix that little bug in the install script. What it's trying to do ultimately is create this folder. Let's see. It's trying to create that folder. I need sudo for that. And it's also trying to copy. So this is the tmux theme. So it's trying to copy the powerline tmux default into that path. Okay, so I did that step. I don't think there are any other steps that are missing in there. I'll actually just pause the video quickly and check. Okay, so that was just a dumb little bug. Very simple fix. I had, the number 2.7 where I should have a 3.6 somewhere. So that's been fixed, and these two commands that I ran here were enough to correct what was going wrong there. Okay, so at the end of this script, ignoring the error, it says to finish the process, you have to run/do the following: launch tmux and press Control B and then Shift I to capital I to activate the plugins. So I'll do that now. So tmux, if you haven't heard about it before, we can already see powerline starting to do nice things to the design of tmux, although not yet to our command line because there's this error up here. So we have to press Control B and then Shift I. I'll talk a little bit about tmux in another video. So now after pressing Control B, Shift I, we see the tmux environment reloaded, done, press Escape to continue, and we have this error message, which I think represents another bug in one of my scripts, so I'll take a second to investigate that. Alright, so that was a whole bunch of debugging, and it turned out there was another rather stupid mistake. So it's fixed. And now when I run tmux, it looks kind of as you would expect. You get really nice looking prompts, and at the bottom you have these really nicely decorated, tmux details. So you get, on this bottom bar, you get the uptime for the server, the percent CPU utilization, which is like 0% unless I hit enter a whole bunch, in which case, we get the CPU up to 5% or something like that. The date, time, what server you're actually connected to, and then here you have your windows. So if I go, new window, rename window, second, I get these two little windows with mouse mode enabled and mouse scrolling enabled and all sorts of nice sort of same default features. So I'll talk a lot more about tmux later. But it seems like everything looks pretty good now. I'll kill that tmux session. There's no tmux server running anymore. So tmux now works just fine. And briefly I can mention how bashhub works. So bashhub, if you type bh, it prints out kind of, I actually have to refresh this terminal, so I'll close and start this terminal again. Because we installed bashhub without closing and restarting the terminal, so bh now just prints out kind of all the commands you've done recently. And let's say you want to search those commands for something like, powerline. Now you get those restricted to the commands that contain powerline, or let's say you want, sudo find, or sorry, it has to be a single, it would have to be quoted. So if I want like sudo find, this is roughly equivalent to saying history piped to grep sudo find, right? But history isn't as extensive as bh. bh actually just records all the commands that you've run in the cloud historically on this machine with this user, with this particular bashhub login. So it's very powerful. bh-i gives you an interactive search, so you can search for, sudo find, and then you can kind of scroll through all the commands that are there, and you can, press enter to run one of them and see the results and so on and so forth. So it's quite nice. And if you're running in tmux, then there's actually a really nice hotkey. So in tmux, everything you do starts with Control B, every command that's related to tmux. So for example, Control B and then pressing D detaches from tmux. So I go back to my, tmux is still running, I can go tmux ls to see there's still one running, tmux A to attach to it. So if I detach, do some stuff, then tmux A attach, I'm still in the same state, detach, attach. I'm still in the same state in tmux as I was before. And now is actually a pretty cool, if you just hold down Control and press BB, you get a bashhub interactive search. So you don't even have to type in tmux. You just press Control B for a regular command, and just press B again as you still have Control down. And I can do the same kind of search that I was doing before. So I can search for like default.json and see all the commands where I did that. I can filter down. I can quit to go back out with Q. Okay, so that's kind of a crash course on bashhub. And yeah, we basically have a really well configured Ubuntu VM ready to do, development work, kind of all the development work you would want to do in the space of like multi-core computing. And all that really remains is to configure putty appropriately on Windows to interact with this. So I actually did connect with putty to this, and you can see I've got the nice, coloring of the prompt. And if I run tmux here, tmux actually looks, nice. I can run htop in one pane and then, do nice things in the other pane and have a new window and so on and so forth. This all looks quite nice, and I'm just doing this through putty, essentially without, any direct involvement of the Ubuntu guest. I'm doing this on the Windows host, and I'm seeing everything looks normal. This all looks quite nice. There was a little bit of glitching here when I created the second pane, but I can, nothing a clear can't fix. So this all works quite nicely. But if you tried to connect in your initial setup and do these exact same steps to open up tmux and see how things look, or even just look at these nice powerline lines with putty on Windows with the default putty settings, it would not look this nice. And it comes down to the font that I'm using. You need to use a font that's actually for powerline, so it handles the special characters. So if you go with the default, Courier or Console S, let's go with Courier New, for example, and I'll apply this. This looks quite different, right? You get these funny little boxes, and down here the interface doesn't look quite right. You don't get all the special, a lot of little special characters and so on. So if you want this kind of nice font, the font that you have to find and set up on Windows is this font, Déjà Vu sans mono for powerline. So you enable that guy and you get all of the nice characters that you're supposed to get. And if you're wondering where you get this, there's a GitHub run by people who are sort of powerline enthusiasts, and I'll show a link. I'll just show what this looks like and sort of how you set up such a font. So if you go to github.com/powerline/fonts, you have all the different fonts, and you can kind of preview them. You can find previews of the powerline fonts online. And if you want Déjà Vu, which I think a lot of people, those with culture and taste, agree is the best out of these fonts, then you can go grab Déjà Vu sans mono, download it, save it, and then open up the font. And when you open up a font on Windows, you get this sort of interesting little interface that demos the font. And then you just click this install button up here, and that'll install the font, and then restart putty. And when you open putty in that menu, the right click on, what you do is you open up your putty window here, right click on it, go change settings. And then once you've changed it to the desired font, you go back to session, select your session tutorial, and go save. You're going to save over the tutorial. You're updating the saved session. And you can also do this for a default, as a default. So you go default settings, load, make the change that you would like, change the font, go back to session, select default settings, and go save. And then every session that you subsequently create will have this font as a default. And it's actually quite a nice looking font. Okay, so I think that's about the size of it. That's pretty much what I wanted to describe. We'll leave to a later video how to get Putty to connect and tmux to spawn extra SSH sessions and so on, and how you can connect to other remote servers, all without actually having to type usernames or passwords or anything like that. Basically, public and private key authentication using Pageant and Putty on Windows, and sort of open SSH on Linux. So with that, I'll cut the vid. Thanks for watching. I hope it was useful.